Morning, St Tim's, and welcome to two really rather short readings, which is often a good thing. They have one very obvious thing in common, which is a strong sort of binary quality. On the one hand this, on the other hand that. And one Old Testament, one New Testament, but directing us, if you like, in the same narrative. The first is the first of the Psalms. So this is Psalm 1, and you'll find it, if you have a copy of the Church Bible with you, on page 543, 543, and it reads thus. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. And the second reading is from Matthew's Gospel. This is chapter 7, starting at verse 24 and running through to verse 27. You'll find it on page 972 of the Church Bible if you're following this. This is the end point of Jesus' epic Sermon on the Mount, which occupies 3 chapters in Matthew and goes through a whole list of things that concern our human behaviour, our relationships with each other, our relationship with God, our necessity for not judging others, and so on. And Jesus finishes it with a short parable. And starting at verse 24, on the basis of all that he's just been teaching, he says this: Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning. See, the theme that I heard when I was looking at those readings, and the theme that I think we were aiming towards, was thinking about wisdom. What is wisdom? What does it look like in people we know? Well, there is the learned. The people who have read a lot can tell you the history of things, the science, why things happen. In our context, those who have studied the Bible, maybe been to university and done theology, can pull a quote from the Bible for every situation and understands the chronology and context of each chapter of the book. Those who really thought about what every word means and why it was placed in that sentence, in that chapter, and who was writing it, what was going on for them at that time. Then you have those who have lived, who have experienced life in such a way they understand in their bones what is going on, who can advise on most situations as they have been through it, or have known someone who has been through it. These people, you can see, have had lots of hardship in their lives, and to be able to understand others in the way they do, and be able to advise or empathise in such an in-depth way. Now, if you know me, I'm a children's minister, and I spend a lot of time with children. That's why Noah's liked it. And genuinely, some of the most wise words I've ever heard have come out of children's mouths. There's a stripped back simplicity to the way their minds work, see the world, how they question it. But what does that mean for us, though? As though they are three... I just realised, I was so tied up in my thing, I forgot I had pictures. They are three distinct categories, aren't they? We often recognise some of that, or bits of those in ourselves. But that wouldn't express what we are like, the whole of us. And people are not wholly that. There's more than that. Wisdom often comes mixed with insecurities, mistakes, failures. I am definitely more of the University of Life. I have 5 children. I became a parent when I was 20. I come from a large family. I've been working with children in some contexts for a long time, for many years. I've always had a keen interest in child development, not necessarily I did study child development at college, but more through life, through excitement of being around children. I'm especially interested in neurodiversity and the way our brains work, mainly because I have a pretty neurospicy family, and realising that my norm is not necessarily to fit in with the norm of what society tells us. But most of my knowledge is from life. It's not from a book. Now, does that mean I'm always a good mother? Does that mean I'm always tuned into my children's needs? Because I do actually understand what they are. I understand when they are overstimulated, overtired, hungry, got other things going on they can't express. I understand how to meet their needs. Does that mean I always do? No, definitely not. Of course that doesn't. I'm human. I get tired, I'm distracted, I'm hungry, I'm overstimulated. So like all parents, I'm often quite grumpy, I'm irritable, and I just want them to stop screaming. I have the knowledge, but also I have other things going on in my life. So I can't always step back and put that knowledge into good use. But I also live with my husband, who can step in when my reservoirs of patience are running low. He can tap into his, for me and for the kids. He's been around the block a few times, and his knowledge and understanding of kids is not quite as in-depth as mine. Is my microphone putting in and out by any chance? Yes. Shall I use the left one? Shall I get that? Got Ellen's. See if I can not cut in and out. I might turn this microphone off. Where was I? Oh yes, I was talking about my husband stepping in when he needs to. Because I've shared a lot of my knowledge with him over the years, he has an idea when my reserves are running low, what I'm trying to achieve, so he can step in and help. Now this is making me think about, who do we walk with through life? How does that affect us? Now my husband's not Christian. You won't see him here on a Sunday, unless we're having a shared lunch or something afterwards. He likes those. But I don't doubt that God has been with us in every step of our lives together. I've even told him in moments of sockiness that he was a gift from God. As he helped me heal from a lot of past experiences. Now if you know Simon, I'm sure you can imagine the look on his face with that one. But God has always been welcome in our house. By me spending a lot of time with other people of faith, I've been guided by that wisdom, which in turn comes home with me. And I also take it into other relationships with other people outside church. There are many people who speak what sounds like wise words, but are they words that come from God? Society often tells us to live or think a certain way, and there are good reasons for that. If you're motivated by
God to have in our life? Is that what we're looking for? Do we feel we deserve better lives than we have? Should we be happier than this? Less pain than this? We often feel like that because life is hard and it can feel very unfair. But with God you can find peace with that and be able to talk through hard times with others who are of the same faith, and even more pray with them, can find a peace and understand that can't be explained by logical arguments. Now the reading, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yield its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Now, I feel this reading makes some people lean towards saying, only surround yourself with people of God. But I don't believe that's what it's saying. I think it's saying you need people of God with you on your journey, so you can lean into those conversations on a regular basis, that you have the natural wisdom from God that helps you weather the storm of life. It also builds you up to help others who may not have access to that. Not have access to that wisdom, or who don't know God, have never felt that love or grace in their lives. I have some incredibly good friends, many who don't know God. And we can talk about most things, have a laugh, have a cry, do life together. But they don't understand my relationship with God. And I find it pretty impossible to explain to someone who can't feel it with me. But the conversations I have with friends who do have faith are different. They may not always know me as well as my other friends, but they understand where my motivation comes from, where I find my peace, where I often find my strength from, because if there's one thing I've learned over the years, the depths of strength you can dip into and gain when you truly lean on God. The key is prayer. It often is. As I was saying the other day to a group of incredibly wise women of God, how many times have you got through the thought when things are going wrong and are out of control, when you are really stressed or worried, and go, oh yes, we should pray. Why didn't I think of that earlier? We all do that sometimes. Life takes over. We get carried away. And we forget to take God with us in that. The trick is to have people in your life who remind you to connect back and help you to do it. Now, if you're thinking while I'm talking, I don't actually know who to do that with, I would recommend looking at small groups or prayer triplets or things like that. Because having a group you can talk about life, look at the Bible, pray together, can be that regular grounding that makes all the difference. And if that is something you're interested in, grab me at the end and I'll put you in touch with the right people who can help you with that. Our second reading is probably very familiar to most people. I obviously forgot to get more reading. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house upon the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the wind blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. And yes, as a children's minister, I have got the song going around my head continuously while reading that. The moral being, if you build your life on the words of Christ, on the teachings of the Bible, on prayer, you will have so much more stability. Wisdom is not necessarily knowing or understanding everything. It is sometimes recognising that we don't need to know, plan or control everything. We just need to be guided by God's word. So that brings me back to the three types of wisdom that I was talking about, that is how I view wisdom. You may disagree. But it's how I see it in people. If our learning and reading is of God, it builds upon knowledge of God's word. But that was always going to help being backed up with some life experience. to really be able to feel and show compassion through understanding. Often, what cuts across all of that is coming back to Christ as a child, leaving behind all that we know, have learned. Just turn back to God with open hearts, willing to learn it all again. I'm going to finish with a prayer. Lord, help us to build our lives on your word. Help us to have places where we can rest with your people, places where we can rest our load, and each of us will be able to share the wisdom we have learned through our lives with you, so that we can continue to live our lives equipped to glorify you and share your love with all.